they have to teach a lesson as part of the class that they're doing with me, and I will let them introduce themselves, and they're gonna do an activity that will review a lot of the topics that are gonna be on your unit test. I think I told you, your unit exam is gonna be Wednesday of next week, so your notebook, your unit exam. Do you have any questions for me before they introduce themselves? Yeah.
Wednesday is the AP Lang test. I was wondering how that would, like, what would those...
You can just do it Thursday or Friday.
Okay, yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, so the Chicano press conference, I know there's 2 people that didn't go. We'll get you up on Monday, and then we'll do a closure activity on the anti-war movement. Tuesday we'll do LGBT civil rights, and then Wednesday notebook due and test. And remember, I'm not taking notebooks late. Notebooks you can use them on the test. They be turned in that day, so work on your notebook. And I will let our 2 presenters introduce themselves.
Okay, so good morning, guys. My name is Mr. Harding, and like your teacher said, I'm a student at Cal State Long Beach getting a teaching credential. And so we're just going to teach you guys a little review lesson on racism. So you're going to need to get your Chromebooks out, and we're going to, we have 2 sources. We have some Google Slides, but what you're really going to need are the packet of sources. So that's what we're going to be working through. I'll display the slides up here.
It'll take a couple minutes.
Yeah, no worries.
And the rest of the
Okay.
Like, he knows too much. That was way too much. He did a year ago.
Yes, these will go on the next 2 pages of your notebook. 150, 151.
Alright, you guys, does everyone get 2 pages?
We need one more. Hey, we need one over here.
Which one? Alright guys, and my name is Missy. So I'm one of Jesse's colleagues and another one of Mr. Bower's students. So Jesse, or Mr. Harding, will be teaching you the first half of your lesson, and I'll be teaching you guys the second half of the lesson.
Do you want to tell them a little bit more about yourself while we set this
Okay,
up?
so fun fact, I actually grew up around the corner from here. My sister had Mr. Wimmer his 2nd year here teaching at Pacifica. My sister is 10 years older than I am.
That was 20 years ago.
So that was 20 years ago, right? And I actually went to Barker Elementary, which is, I'm assuming, still 2 blocks down the road.
Yeah, she's still there.
Okay, I'm not sure because I was driving here and nothing looked familiar.
Who was your principal?
I don't even remember. It was a long time ago.
Was it a girl?
Yes.
Was it Miss Dalton?
No.
Okay.
It's not
No, I
wrong.
try to just communicate, you know.
So, actually, the last time I saw Pacifica was when the giant Mariner mural was still in the front of the school. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Fish sticks.
Oh, way back.
Okay, yeah, the fish sticks guy. And I remember that when they first put that mural up and revealed it, the apartment complex across the street had a complaint because it was too bright and it glowed into their bedrooms. When the sun was up.
Does that make sense?
It was like a So when they first painted it, he had giant like blue and green fluorescent waves around him. Yeah. Showing my age here because y'all don't even remember that.
Back in those times, so fluorescent lighted.
Right? Yeah, so they had to repaint it because the neighborhood across the street did like.
Thank you, Carley.
All right, everyone, so just to recap, kind of a chaotic start. So my name is Mr. Harding. So we're just gonna be doing a quick lesson with you guys to review for your test on Wednesday. All right, so let's go over our today's agenda. So we're first gonna start you guys out with a quick write prompt, which is on that graphic organizer. And then we're gonna move into basically an activity, and it's gonna be discussion based. So we're gonna move through different sources, but really we're gonna have it as a discussion between yourselves and then as an entire class. And then we'll close it out with just a closing reflection. So that's kind of the agenda for the day. All right, so our question for today is, what does racism look like in America? And how I want you guys to think about this is think about it in the past, but also how has it changed? So have certain elements got better? Has it gotten worse? What's different today? So kind of view it in that type of a lens, so as a change over time. All right, so on your quick write prompt, on your graphic organizer, this first box right here, we're just gonna do this very quickly. This should be a review for you guys, so use that prior knowledge and answer, what did racism look like in the early 20th century or the early 1900s? All right, so you're gonna have a couple minutes, well, let's just say 2 minutes to get some of your ideas down, and then share with an elbow partner. So these two rows share, and then you guys, your elbow partners, just talk about your ideas, all right? And then we'll bring it together as an entire class, all right? Let's get started.
Leslie and Jacob. And Carley.
All right, so if you guys are finished, you guys can share with your partners. All right, you guys, let's hear some ideas being shared. You guys all have written. All right, guys, thank you very much for sharing. Since this is a review, we're just gonna move on to our activity portion. So, in your Google Classroom, there should be a link, and you're gonna need to download. It's just called Packet of Sources. Does everyone see that? Yes? Okay, cool. So just open that up, and then we'll move on through. All right, so what we're gonna do As I mentioned, in the agenda, it's going to be a discussion-based class. So what we're going to do is you're going to use your graphic organizer. You're going to read those questions, kind of have it in the back of your mind while you view the sources on how you would want to answer them. And then you're going to have, so the first section is just an image and a graph, right? So you guys are going to have 4 minutes to look through that and answer those first questions on your graphic organizer under image gallery 1. All right, and then we're going to turn and talk, and then we'll have a discussion. All right, so you guys have 4 minutes, and I'll be walking around answering any questions you guys might have, okay? Are there any questions? No? Okay, great. Did you guys do that? All right, let's do another minute on those questions and then turn and talk.
And if you guys are done early, you can turn and talk now.
Okay. All right, I see most of you are finished or about to finish. So let's start having discussions with your elbow partner on what you guys found and on some of the questions, what you guys think. All right, everyone. All right, so I know you guys do sourcing in this class. So so let's quickly, so Brittany, what year was this photograph taken?
In 1916.
Okay, perfect. And Katie, where was the photograph taken? Okay, Waco, Texas. So we have a time and a place for this image. Does anyone, so let's, Andrew, do you have an idea of what's going on in this photo?
I believe it's a lynching.
Yes, it is. So you guys, I'm sure you've talked about lynching. So just as a quick, brief reminder, it's just a brutal murder that had no extrajudicial action, which basically just means there wasn't a trial, there wasn't due process. And so this image is actually of an African American named Jesse Washington. And there was a professional photographer on site, and it was the first time that people started understanding what lynching was. And while it didn't change overnight, this was certainly a horrific image for many people in the country. And so, yeah, so let's go to the next, let's source the next document real quick. So, Juan, what does the title tell us about this graph? Looks like it got cut off. Oh no, there it is. It's just on the side right here. So what is this graph? Just give me a brief introduction to this graph.
There were like a lot of people died.
Yeah, so how you read this one is on this x-axis right here, it's just the year, so moving in time. And this right here are numbers, and what it means is these are lynching deaths per 100,000 residents. So what that means is in Arkansas in 1915, sorry, so let's find Arkansas, which is this red line. We follow around 1915, right up here. It's about 1 lynching per 100,000 people. The population in Arkansas at that time was 1.6 million. So that means that about 16 lynchings took place during that year. So that's how you read that graph. So are there any general trend lines? Katie, are there any general trend lines that you would say looking at this graph? Yeah, so there's some spikes, right? And then towards the end, there's thankfully a trend down towards 0. All right, so let's talk about our questions on your graphic organizer. So Michael, what might the purpose of public racial violence like this, what's the reason for it?
It's like the views of certain people, so like political views and all that.
Okay. Andrew, do you have any ideas on why there might be public racial violence?
I think it's used to intimidate people.
Okay. And Isaiah? Anything else? Yeah.
Oh yeah. For the first question.
Yeah, for the first
Oh,
one.
I feel like it's showing like the hatred over time, like generation to generation, of like the white people, like they're teaching their kids and what they see, and just like the hatred against races of blacks and whites, and just how like the hatred of whites is kind of overpowering.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so let's go to that second question then. So, according to the image in this graph, do you guys think that racism was an individual or a cultural practice? Faith, what do you think? Okay, cool. And Sean, is there anything else you want to add if it's an individual or a cultural practice?
I agree that it was a practice. Back in the early 1900s, there was a lot of, it just was seen as like a social norm.
Okay, great. So I'll take a hand for this one. Does anyone think it was an individual practice? Does anyone have any different ideas, or do you guys all think it was a cultural practice? You wanna say something, Isaac?
Individual in the way that like some people only did it because like they didn't do it because other people they were kind of doing it because like we read a story about like one kid like said hi to some white woman in a store and something like that, and then the kid got taken, and then like so some people did it out of like of just like anger of like jealous. Yeah, like jealousy.
Okay.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, great. Thanks. And then, all right. So this image right here just shows that lynching wasn't just a southern problem, right? It's kind of hard to see up here, but these are the northern states, and there's also some lynchings that also happen in the west. So I'm sure you guys already knew that, but this problem wasn't just an isolated incident. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the documents, and let's just take a look at document B for this discussion, and we're gonna do the same thing. So I'm gonna give you guys, let's say 3 minutes to 4 minutes to read document B. So skip A and answer the questions. You're gonna share with a partner, and then we'll just have a class discussion. So on that first question on your graphic organizer about the covenant, just skip that one because that's more related to document A. All right, let's take another minute. All right, so we're going to skip our partner discussion and just bring it as a full class. So have you guys discussed redlining before? Yes. Okay. So you guys know what the general practice was, and you've heard of systemic and institutionalized racism before? Yes. Okay. So, this first question, what impact might redlining have on neighborhoods? Callie? Yeah, so what impact might redlining have on neighborhoods?
Well, for the immigrants and like fast food users and they were in like a hazardous, so like they kind of separated people by like their
Okay. Is it Lena? Lena? Do you have anything to add on how redlining affects neighborhoods? Okay. Great. All right, so let's move on to that second one, or the third one. So how do these housing practices uphold racial hierarchies in America? And let's go to Leslie. Not here. Ruby.
I'm not sure, but
Okay, it's all right. Jake, do you have an idea? Not here too? Just everyone is not here. Sarah.
I didn't get to that one.
Didn't get to that one? All right, so let's look at this area that's bold. What is this that's bolded? What is it saying?
the net worth.
The net worth, right? So if they have if white families have more economic power, they can keep these racial hierarchies in check. So before I turn it over to Ms. Waterbury, I just want to really reiterate this point about systemic racism and overt racism. So are any of you guys in a psychology class? Yes? Okay, so for those of you that are in a psychology class, do you remember Abraham Maslow? Yes? All right, so what was his big theory? What is his famous theory?
Isn't it the Maslow's
Yeah.
pyramid of
Hierarchy of needs, right?
the basic
Right? So it's like our food pyramid. And you guys remember what's on the very bottom?
food, like just basic needs.
Yeah, right? So it's like food, water, breathing. These are called our physiological needs. And then does anyone remember the step up?
Safety.
Safety, perfect. All right, so we have safety. So, lynchings were this very overt form of racism that affects our physiological needs, our breathing. But also, redlining, this systemic version, also affects another physiological need, is shelter and safety. So if banking and housing institutions and mortgages, they weren't giving loans to minorities and African Americans that wanted to live in these areas, they were not fulfilling the hierarchy of needs. So this systemic racism is also extremely damaging, and the other reason it's so harmful is because it's widespread. It's not just in one area, and it affects a lot of people. So, and it's also harder to see, right? Where the lynching, you see the images and everyone's horrified. You're like, wow, I cannot believe that happened. This form of racism goes undetected, and something that we need to do as a society to change for the future. But with that, I'm gonna pass it over to Ms. Waterbury. So thank you guys.
Alright guys, so, just like Jesse was saying, there's Maslow hierarchy of needs. So we need safety, we need food, we need water, but we also need acceptance, right? So systematic racism functions on a very social level as well. So that's what we're gonna be looking at in the second set of documents. So we're gonna go through the image gallery. So this is your first image. This is gonna be the bottom left of your paper, labeled image number 1. So the question is, the individuals walking down the street belong to what organization? Shout them out. KKK. Alright, awesome. So my next question is, why did these individuals feel comfortable walking around the street in broad daylight? Okay, they're covered up. normal back then. Okay, anyone else have anything else? They were covered up. It was considered normal back then. Go ahead.
They were seen as a threat.
They were seen as a threat and people were scared, so they're covered up. It was normal back then and people are scared, so who's gonna say anything to them? Right? Yes. So, photo number 2. Go ahead and look at that question. It's gonna be labeled image number 2. View the photo, read the caption, give you guys a minute to write that down, think about your answers. The question is, when this photo was taken, were buses still segregated by law?
1966.
There you go, guys. So Michael, when this photo was taken, were buses still segregated by law?
Yes, I think.
Can you guys read that, or is the font too weird? Okay, so the caption reads, despite a court ruling on desegregated buses, white and blacks continue to be divided by their own choice. Texas, 1956. So, were buses desegregated at the time this photo was taken? Yes, the buses were desegregated. So, meaning that anyone could sit anywhere on this bus, and what do we notice about the image? Where are people of color still sitting? In the back. So does anyone want to raise their hand and give a guess as to why they're still continuing to sit in the back even though they don't have to? Go ahead, Michael.
Maybe just the pressure of the whites still kind of like working. I feel like it was just being desegregated, so still wasn't people like kind of filling into the law, I guess, and still felt like obligated to have to sit in the back, I guess.
Exactly. So society and the social norms and the social rules that we all have to follow by, like the same rule of just raising your hand before you speak out, was still being followed. Socially, they still had to sit in the back of the bus, right? So even though the law had changed, society really hadn't. Okay. Image number 3. Does anyone know where this photo comes from? A restaurant? Okay. Does anyone know what region or state this comes from?
No.
California. Not necessarily Garden Grove. It might be from Garden Grove. I'm not sure, but it is exactly from California.
They saw it last week when we talked about Mendez versus Westminster.
Okay.
So that's why they think it's.
I mean, there was probably a sign that looked very much like this in Garden Grove, so that's a correct answer. So perfect. So, was racism only confined to the South? Ruben. Ruby, I'm sorry. This is what Professor Wilmer is writing this song.
It is. Hey, they know that too.
Right? It's okay. My writing's sloppy too. Okay, so Ruby, was racism just in the South? No. It was pretty much widespread across America, just like Jesse showed you, or Mr. Harding showed you with those images of the map of lynchings. Okay. Awesome. So, based off of these images, what have we learned about racism in society at large? Anyone want to make a summarizing statement about those 3 images? You guys can volunteer, or I'll wait you out and call on someone randomly. Okay.
That even though by law, like the bus photo, even though it was still like not supposed to be, segregated, it still was, and the majority of the society probably didn't really care. It was probably still racist.
Okay. Go ahead. You had your hand up too.
It just shows how one race was overpowering all other races.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Alright, so I'm gonna show you guys a clip. How many of you guys have seen the movie The Help? It has Octavia Spencer. It was about 2 maids who were in the South. They wrote a book. Made her a slice of pie. Okay.
Oh.
There we go.
Yeah, the pie.
How did I know that slice of pie would get everyone to remember
Yeah,
that?
the pie that came out of it was cool.
There you go. Alright, so we're gonna watch a clip from the movie. So your questions for this is, was the white lady in the clip racist? So I want you guys to view the movie thinking about that. It's very micro, so I'm gonna see if y'all can catch it. Oh,
I'll
okay.
And then they're eating it. They're like, oh, this is
second, we're gonna deal with a technological difficulty.
Jesse, do you wanna review anything with them while she sets that up?
Hey Jesse, what's the next step on the Hazel Martin? What about you guys? What's the next triangle on
Love.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
It's love. Like sharing the needs to be wanted, right?
Okay.
And after that, it's your self-esteem. And then
Yeah.
after that, the final one is your self-worth, knowing that you serve like a higher being than yourself.
Yep, yeah, and it all culminates in like self-actualization or fulfilling your potential. So, just I guess yeah, going back to this. So, what happens, you guys, the psychology majors in here? What happens if any of these needs aren't fulfilled?
You don't meet like the threshold of a certain basic level. You can't aspire to the best thing that you can be, and you're like the glass half empty. You're not fully like at your true potential, and like as a person in society and stuff like that, you're not like how to say this, not what you should quote unquote be.
Okay. All right. So, taking that a step further, if you feel that way about yourself, like you don't feel like you're reaching your full potential, what is that causing internally to you? Like what kind of feelings would you be having? Depression, doubt, fear, anxiety, like stress, all these things, anger. So you guys can see how these types of racism would make people would
That's
feel.
smart.
You good?
Yeah. You should have gotten into it. It'd be good. Okay. Awesome. So, you know, technology, it's great. We learned that all about that. So, okay. So this is the scene from the help. Hopefully we got volume and everything.
The help. H-E-L-P.
Did you guys see it?
Go from like
Okay, by a show of hands, put them up. Who saw it? Who needs to watch the video one more time? Excellent. Mr. Harding's raising his hand too, y'all. Don't even worry about
to
it.
go from
Okay, ready?
how to get away from her. That's what it is.
Alright, are we ready? We're gonna watch it one more time.
The help. H-E-L-P.